The prestigious Thornfield Concert Hall buzzed with anticipation as 8-year-old Marcus Chen finished polishing the brass fixtures on the grand stage. His olive-green custodial uniform and cleaning supplies marked him as part of the maintenance crew, nearly invisible to the elegantly dressed patrons who would soon fill the red velvet seats for the evening's gala performance. Marcus had been working as a janitor at Thornfield for 2 years, a job that allowed him the flexibility to pick up his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, from school and be home with her in the evenings. The work was honest and steady, paying enough to cover their modest apartment and Emma's needs, though it was a far cry from the life he had once imagined for himself. Tonight was the annual Thornfield Foundation Gala, a black-tie fundraising event that brought together the city's wealthiest philanthropists, business leaders, and cultural elite. The hall gleamed under the warm stage lights as Marcus made his final preparations, ensuring that every surface was perfect for the distinguished guests who would arrive within the hour. As Marcus cleaned around the concert grand piano that dominated the center of the stage, he could not help but pause and look at the magnificent instrument. The Steinway's polished black surface reflected the stage lights like a mirror, and Marcus felt the familiar ache of longing that he had learned to suppress over the years. "Almost finished there, Marcus?" called out James Wellington, the 2-year-old CEO of Wellington Industries and chairman of the Thornfield Foundation Board. Wellington wore an impeccably tailored black tuxedo and carried himself with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to commanding attention in any room he entered. "Yes, sir, Mr. Wellington," Marcus replied, stepping back from the piano. "Everything should be ready for tonight's performance." Wellington approached the stage, checking his gold watch with the practiced air of someone whose time was measured in millions of dollars. "Excellent, though I must inform you there's been a development. Tonight's featured pianist, Maestro Davidoff, has fallen ill. Food poisoning from bad oysters at lunch. We're scrambling to find a replacement." Marcus's heart sank, though not for the reason Wellington might have expected. "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I hope you can find someone suitable." As Wellington spoke, several other board members and major donors began filtering into the hall for the pre-event reception. Marcus recognized many of them from his 2 years of working at the venue. Titans of industry, celebrated artists, and society figures whose names regularly appeared in the business and culture sections of the newspaper. "You know, Marcus," Wellington said, distraction evident in his voice as he gestured toward the piano, "do you happen to play at all? We're in quite a bind here." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "A little, sir. Nothing that would be appropriate for tonight's audience." Wellington's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it with frustration. "Our backup pianist is in London and can't get here in time. The next backup is performing in Boston." He looked at Marcus with new intensity. How little is a little? Before Marcus could answer, Wellington's assistant rushed over, whispering urgently in his ear. Wellington's face darkened. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the growing crowd, his voice strained, "I regret to inform you that due to an emergency, tonight's featured performance has been canceled. We're exploring alternatives, but I may need to ask for your understanding and—" "James," interrupted a voice from the crowd. Victoria Ashford, the formidable arts critic for the city's major newspaper, stepped forward. "You're telling me you've assembled 300 of the city's wealthiest donors, charged them $1,000 per ticket, and now have no performance? This will be catastrophic for the Foundation's reputation." "I'm aware, Victoria," Wellington said tightly. "We're doing everything we can." Marcus watched this unfold, feeling the weight of a secret he had kept carefully hidden for 2 years, pressing down on him. He thought of Emma, of their modest life, of the safety and anonymity his custodial job provided. Then he thought of all the underfunded music programs Wellington had mentioned were counting on tonight's fundraising success. "Mr. Wellington," Marcus said quietly, though his voice carried in the acoustically perfect hall, "I might be able to help." Wellington turned to him, desperate enough now to grasp at any solution. "You said you play a little. What exactly does that mean?" "I mean," Marcus said, feeling as though he were standing at the edge of a cliff, "I graduated from the New England Conservatory 12 years ago. I was training as a concert pianist before my wife died, and I became a single parent. The murmur that went through the crowd was like wind through trees. Victoria Ashford's eyes narrowed with interest. Marcus Chen, she said slowly. That name is familiar. Weren't you the Chen who won the Gershwitz competition in 2013? There was talk of you being the next great American pianist, then you just vanished. Marcus nodded, feeling exposed in a way he hadn't felt in years. That was me. Life took a different direction. Can you still play at that level? Wellington asked, hope and skepticism warring in his expression. I don't know, Marcus admitted honestly. I haven't performed publicly in 4 years. I practice at home sometimes, after Emma goes to sleep, but it's not the same as— We'll pay you, Wellington interrupted. Maestro Davidoff's fee, $15,000. The figure hung in the air between them. Marcus did quick mental math. That was more than he made in 4 months as a janitor. It could cover Emma's school tuition for a year, maybe even fix the persistent leak in their apartment ceiling. What would you want me to play? Marcus asked. Whatever you're most confident with, Wellington replied. We need 90 minutes of quality performance. Can you do that? Marcus looked at the piano, then out at the sea of expectant, skeptical faces. Many of them were already whispering, some pulling out their phones. By tomorrow, his carefully constructed anonymity would be shattered. Everyone would know that the janitor was once someone else entirely. I'll do it, Marcus said, but I need 30 minutes to prepare, and I need to make a phone call. Wellington nodded vigorously. Take whatever time you need. And Marcus? Thank you. Marcus retreated to a small practice room backstage and pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Emma answered on the second ring, her voice bright with the innocence of childhood. Hi, Daddy. Mrs. Patterson made mac and cheese. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Listen, something unexpected happened at work. I'm going to be home later than usual tonight. Is that okay? Is everything all right? Emma asked, her tone shifting to concern with the quick perception children have for their parents' moods. Everything's fine, Marcus assured her. Actually, Daddy is going to do something he hasn't done in a very long time. I'm going to play piano for a lot of people. Like a concert? Emma's voice filled with excitement. Like in the videos Grandma showed me of you when you were younger. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. His mother-in-law had kept his old performance videos, showing them to Emma despite Marcus's requests that she let that past stay buried. Yes, sweetheart. Like a concert. I wish I could be there, Emma said softly. Me too, Marcus replied, but I'll tell you all about it when I get home. And Emma, I want you to know that I love you more than anything in the world, including music. That will never change, no matter what happens tonight. I love you too, Daddy. Play the pretty song you play for me at bedtime. After hanging up, Marcus sat at the practice room's small, upright piano. His hands trembled as he placed them on the keys. What was he doing? 4 years away from serious performance was an eternity in the world of classical music. His technique might have deteriorated. His memory might fail him mid-piece. He could humiliate himself in front of the city's cultural elite and a notoriously harsh critic. But then he thought of the music programs that needed funding, of Emma's school tuition, of the chance, however terrifying, to touch that part of himself he had locked away. He began to play scales, feeling the rust in his fingers, then arpeggios. Slowly, the muscle memory returned, his hands remembering what his mind had tried to forget. When the 30 minutes elapsed, Marcus walked back onto the stage in his custodial uniform. He had considered asking to borrow formal attire, but decided against it. This was who he was now, a working-class single father who happened to have an extraordinary past. The hall had filled completely. Word of the unusual situation had spread, and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation and doubt. Victoria Ashford sat in the front row, her notebook open, pen poised like a weapon. Wellington introduced him awkwardly. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you'll be experiencing something truly unique. Marcus Chen, who many of you know as part of our custodial staff, was once one of the most promising pianists of his generation. Life took him in a different direction, but tonight he's graciously agreed to step in for our indisposed maestro. Marcus sat at the piano, adjusting the bench height. The familiar weight of performance anxiety settled over him, but beneath it was something else, a deep well of emotion that 4 years of suppression had only made more powerful. He decided to open with Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, a piece so overplayed it was often dismissed by serious musicians, but one that held deep personal meaning. His wife had walked down the aisle to it at their wedding. The first notes emerged tentatively, his fingers finding their way like a man walking through a once familiar room in darkness. But as the piece progressed, the memories flooded back, not just of his training, but of Sarah, of their wedding day, of her laughter and her love, and the way she had believed in his talent even when he doubted himself. The emotion poured through his fingers into Beethoven's sublime composition. This wasn't the technically perfect, but emotionally sterile performance of a young competition winner. This was the music of someone who had lived and lost and learned what truly mattered. When the first movement ended, the silence in the hall was absolute. Marcus glanced up and saw that several people were crying, including Victoria Ashford, whose pen remained unused in her hand. He played for 90 minutes without intermission. Chopin's Nocturnes, Bach's Prelude in C major, Rachmaninoff's devastating Prelude in C-sharp minor. He closed with Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, a piece that bridged classical and Ed Bach's Rebelled in C. Jazz, high culture, and American vernacular, just as Marcus himself bridged two worlds. When he finished, the standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. People weren't just applauding his technical skill, though that had proven still formidable, but the raw, emotional honesty of his performance. Wellington approached the stage, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. Marcus, I don't have words. But Victoria Ashford did. She stood and addressed the crowd. I've reviewed performances by the world's greatest pianists in the world's greatest concert halls. What we just witnessed was something more rare than mere technical excellence. We witnessed truth in music, the kind of truth that only comes from someone who has truly lived. The crowd murmured agreement, but Marcus barely heard them. He was thinking about Emma, about getting home to her, about whether he had just made a terrible mistake in exposing himself this way. Over the next few days, Victoria's review appeared with the headline, "The Janitor Who Taught Us What Music Really Means." It went viral on social media. Video clips from audience members' phones garnered millions of views. Suddenly, Marcus Chen was famous in a way he had never been even at the height of his early career. The offers came flooding in. Concert bookings, recording contracts, television appearances. Wellington offered him a position as the Foundation's artist-in-residence, with a salary triple his janitor wages. But Marcus surprised everyone by turning most of it down. "I appreciate everything," he told Wellington in a private meeting, "but my priority has to be Emma. I can't tour. I can't be away from her for extended periods. She's already lost one parent. I won't let her effectively lose another to my career. What if we could structure something around her needs?" Wellington proposed. "Local performances only, recordings done during school hours, teaching positions that would keep you in the city." Marcus considered this carefully. "There's something else you should know," he said slowly. "I'm not sure I want to go back to that life fully. Being a concert pianist isn't just about the music. It's about the competition, the criticism, the constant pressure to be perfect. I left that world partly because of circumstance, but also partly because I wasn't sure it was making me happy." Wellington leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with new respect. "So what do you want?" "Honestly, I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "I loved performing the other night. I loved connecting with the music again. But I also love the simplicity of my current life. Coming home to Emma every evening, not having to worry about reviews or reputation, being anonymous. That ship has sailed on the anonymity," Wellington pointed out gently. "After Victoria's review and those videos, You're going to be recognized. Marcus nodded ruefully. I know, and part of me is angry about that. I didn't ask for this exposure. I just tried to help when you were in a bind. For what it's worth, Wellington said, I think you handled it with incredible grace. And I want you to know that regardless of what you decide about performing, your job here is secure. If you want to remain on the custodial staff, that's completely fine. No judgment. Marcus was surprised by the offer. You'd really let me stay on as a janitor after all this? Work is work, Wellington replied. There's no shame in any honest labor. I'm ashamed that it took your performance for me to truly see you as a complete person rather than just someone who cleans the hall. Over the following weeks, Marcus struggled with his decision. Emma noticed his preoccupation. Daddy, are you sad? She asked one evening as they sat together doing her homework. Not sad, sweetheart, just confused. There are people who want Daddy to go back to being a concert pianist, but I'm not sure that's what I want. Why not? Emma asked with a child's directness. You were really happy when you played. I could tell from your voice when you called me. I was happy, Marcus admitted, but being a concert pianist means traveling a lot, being away from home, missing time with you. Emma thought about this seriously. Daddy, remember when I wanted to quit soccer because I was scared I wasn't good enough? Marcus nodded, wondering where she was going with this. You told me that being scared of something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You said sometimes the things that scare us are the things that are most worth doing. Marcus stared at his daughter, amazed at how his own wisdom was being reflected back to him. You're right. I did say that. So maybe you should take your own advice, Emma said matter-of-factly, returning to her math worksheet. The truth crystallized for Marcus in that moment. He wasn't really afraid of the work or the travel or the pressure. He was afraid of wanting something for himself, of seeming selfish, of proving that he could fail again. He called Wellington the next day. I've made a decision. I'll accept the artist-in-residence position, but with conditions. I'll perform monthly at Thornfield. I'll teach master classes for talented students who can't afford top-tier instruction. I'll record an album. But I won't tour extensively, and I won't take any engagement that conflicts with Emma's important events. Done, Wellington agreed immediately. Anything else? Yes, Marcus said. I want to establish a fund specifically for single parents who are artists. Not just financial support, but practical help, childcare, flexible scheduling, therapy if needed. Because trying to balance parenting and art shouldn't mean giving up either one completely. I think that's a beautiful idea, Wellington replied. The Thornfield Foundation would be honored to make that happen. 6 months later, Marcus gave his first official recital as Thornfield's artist-in-residence. Emma sat in the front row wearing a new dress, but this time she wasn't alone. Beside her sat Mrs. Patterson, and beside them sat a dozen other children whose parents were part of Marcus's new support program. Single mothers and fathers who were painters, writers, dancers, musicians, trying to keep their art alive while raising their children. Marcus played Chopin's Ballade No. 1-inch G minor, a piece of devastating beauty and technical complexity. But he also premiered a composition of his own, titled Emma's Song, which wove together the lullabies he had sung to his daughter over the years into a single, emotionally powerful work. When he finished, Emma ran onto the stage just as she had before. But this time, Marcus lifted her onto the piano bench beside him. Want to play something together? He asked. I only know chopsticks, Emma said shyly, suddenly aware of the large audience. Then let's play chopsticks, Marcus replied with a smile. They played the simple children's tune together, Emma's small fingers pecking out the basic melody, while Marcus improvised increasingly complex and beautiful harmonies beneath it. The audience laughed with delight, but also with recognition of something profound, that the greatest music isn't about complexity or technical perfection, but about connection and love. Victoria Ashford wrote in her follow-up review, Marcus Chen has taught us that success isn't about choosing between art and life, but about finding ways to let them enhance each other. In a culture that often demands total sacrifice for artistic greatness, he offers a different model, one where humanity enriches art rather than being consumed by it. Wellington did keep a photograph in his office, but not from the first emergency performance. Instead, it showed Marcus and Emma at the piano together, playing their duet, both of them grinning with pure joy. The photo reminded him that the most meaningful transformations aren't about discovering hidden talents, but about creating systems and support that allow people to be fully human, to work and create, to love and be present, to honor both their gifts and their responsibilities. Marcus continued his dual life in a way that felt authentic rather than compromised. He cleaned the hall sometimes, not because he had to, but because it kept him grounded and connected to the staff who had been his colleagues. He performed regularly, but never lost sight of why he made music, not for fame or validation, but as a fundamental expression of who he was. And every night, without fail, he came home to Emma. Sometimes they would sit at their old upright piano together, Marcus teaching her the basics, while she taught him to find joy in simple melodies. Other nights, they would simply talk about their days, Emma's adventures at school, Marcus's rehearsals, the ordinary magic of a shared life. The boy-genius pianist, who had once seemed destined for international stardom, had become something better. A man who understood that greatness isn't measured in concert halls or critical acclaim, but in the daily choice to show up authentically for both your art and the people you love. And perhaps most importantly, Emma grew up understanding that her father's sacrifice for her wasn't a burden or a source of guilt, but the greatest gift one person could give another, the gift of being truly present, truly seen, truly loved. Some stories don't end with perfect resolutions, but the best ones end with hard-won wisdom and the courage to keep choosing love, even when it's complicated, even when it's messy, even when it means the path forward isn't quite what you imagined. Marcus had found his way back to music, but more importantly, he had never lost his way with what mattered most. And in the end, that was the most beautiful composition of all.